On the Record with Tiffany, and this is my friend, Juana Chambers Lawson, and author of a new book called A Project Manager's Guide to Grant Writing. And I just think it's excellent for anybody who is trying to get into the nonprofit world. Right now, with so much happening, this pandemic, and we see the numbers just going crazy right now. Everyone is really starting to rethink, what is my purpose? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And we're finding all kinds of people that are, out of the greatest difficulties in life come some of the biggest blessings. And I'm seeing people starting nonprofits, standing up for social justice, standing up for just the causes that they believe in, better healthcare alternatives. And so a book like this is very timely because many of us have heart and drive, but not necessarily the skill set to go in and start a new project like addressing something as monumentous as healthcare, but we see people do it left and right. Like right now, we're seeing a lot of that because everybody's kind of fed up and realizing that we're twisted in the wind in some areas. And that's not necessarily someone else's fault. It's just that there's been a gap, a healthcare gap, and no one's filled it. So, I thought, boy, this is perfect timing to let the world know, here is how you execute around the great idea that you have. So, Luana, I love your five pillars. And I like the fact that it's such an easy read because it's an ebook, and it's just, you can sit there. Like, I actually ended up buying one of those Kindles so that I could read the book. I was like, I probably need to move into the 20th century or the 21st. And I got to get to the 20th before I can get to the 20th, because I'm that person who still likes to hold the book, like holding my book, right, my pages. But it was really great to be able to just scroll through, read. You can highlight things that you like about the book and go back and look at it easily. I mean, there are a lot of benefits to a digital product like that. Yes.
I mean, and that's one of the reasons I'm like you. I'm a very traditional reader as well, but getting that Kindle, sort of getting out of the comfort zone. And I think that was really the reason why we structured this book to go and be readable in the Kindle, is because we do want people that are reading it to really recognize and understand that this is just scratching the surface, right? Like this, you just getting this Kindle and reading this ebook online is the first of many digital activities that you'll have to engage in to make sure that you're engaging in an open source ecosystem, right? Like the open source ecosystem, all the knowledge that's available, all the information that's available online, we have to begin to recognize ways to tap into it, right? It's not just something that the programmers and the coders can get access to because they understand the binary. All of us can access it. We just have to be able, just be open to accessing that type of information that way. So a lot of us, I think, are still functioning analog in a digital world, and it's because we're just comfortable that way. And we should be comfortable that way because at least we know we have control over things in an analog world. But, digital world is going to force us to sort of break away from those comforts. And you see that same sophistication coming into the grant writing space as well. Philanthropy, because especially now with COVID, the need is so profound across the board in so many different areas, so many different sectors that serve people are really needing funding, they're needing dollars. The way that a lot of these philanthropic partners and these benefactors are starting to think about getting funds to the most worthy causes is to those organizations who show that they can compete.
Mm-hmm.
And so it does sort of end up being this sort of self-perpetuating model of giving, right? Because you end up giving to the people who've always received because they had their financials audited, right? They've had paid staff, they've had volunteer programs that were well flushed out, and they had development officials on the board. They've had fundraisers, they've had, grant writers. They've had the understanding of what it means to run a business for a long time, and so now they're able to compete at an even more sophisticated level, and they're already predisposed to succeed in that, right? Because they've already been ahead of the game in that area. So now it's just forcing the rest of us, the tide is sort of here, and we're all just sort of forced to either stay afloat or take a dive under. And I'm hoping that this book gives people the opportunity to see that tide is here. It's already been here. We don't want them to drown. We want them to be able to stay afloat. But in order to stay afloat, you're going to have to begin to become comfortable, grow familiar with different ways of transacting business.
That's right. And structurally, how you structure your foundation is important. Not just if it's a 501(c), but what are the processes and procedures? What are your bylaws? How are you laying those out? Like from board governance on down, your organization has to be airtight, because if you're looking for funding, especially in today's world, where funding has now become incredibly scarce because of the fact that we're going through a pandemic. We're going through something right now. So funding is not just a given. So you need to be prepared. Everything is competitive, but it's not impossible. It's just that accurate and well thought out plans are what has to be presented in order to find success with fundraising. But executing your goals and your plans and scaling those goals and plans up, turning them from more than just something that's on paper but into an actionable, executable plan, that's going to require money.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. This is the first volume. The second volume, I want to talk more about tactical planning, because I think we, nonprofit especially, we understand strategic planning, but we don't understand tactical planning. And tactical planning, the distinction has to be made, because now we're looking at quarters, right? We're not planning for 5 years, 10 years. We're planning for quarter after quarter after quarter. And how we plan that, we're looking at weeks, 13, 15 weeks, and readdressing those and reevaluating those goals. I think that we have to begin to get comfortable with that now, especially because of COVID-19, and that's a whole other area of gray for a lot of grant writing professionals as well, because a lot of the grant writing professionals that you're going to meet, they are, again, functioning, they're analog functioning in a digital world. A lot of the folks that I work with, I'm like, it's not like that anymore. I know it was like that 20 years ago. You could write a letter to the HEB Foundation, and they were paying attention,
Yeah, but it's not and now you're dealing with places like HEB, like Blue Cross and Blue Shield, like the Ford Foundation, and they operate on quarters. And they need to see an ROI. They want a return on investment. A lot of nonprofit professionals don't even know what an ROI is. Like, you say ROI and they're like, what? you know, so and we have to start thinking in terms of that, because that's a real, very important piece of the business model, because often we're going to be talking to people who are business professionals, and they're successful business professionals. HEB is a very successful business. So when you walk in the door to HEB, you need to understand quarters and being able to give out what your metrics were, and have you met them? Everyone wants to see what you've accomplished. And it's not just that feel-good accomplishment, but it's also, how is this impacting the community, and what is it doing in terms of making the lives of the people better, healthier, reducing costs for our community? Those things have to be a part of what your what your plan is. That's what I like about your book, is that it actually is waking up the nonprofit professional to things that they probably haven't thought about, especially if it's a person that's just starting out. And that's the truth also for many established nonprofits that are really wonderful, have wonderful missions and vision, but hadn't necessarily thought about some of the components that you have in this book. So I have to tell everyone that they need to go and pick up A Project Manager's Guide to Grant Writing by Luana Chambers Lawson, because if you are thinking about starting up a nonprofit, if you're working in a nonprofit, or if you are a grant writing professional, this is a wonderful book for you, because it's going to give you some guidance and some tips that you probably hadn't seen before. So you've been listening to On the Record with Tiffany, and come on back, because Luana and I are going to talk about her. This is a very interesting young woman who has come from nothing and is at the top of her game, doing the most, and in the best way. So come back and let's have a listen to a real shero, somebody that inspires me and everybody else that's around her, Luana Chambers Lawson. And you've been listening to On the Record with Tiffany.